Hi there. So you've probably heard a lot of people talking about niching down. There's that expression that you hear, there's riches in the niches. I think that's how the Americans say it, or over here we say niches. And that's what I want to talk about today, why we niche down and what the benefits have been and what the downfalls have been, because no one seems to talk about the downfalls too much. I didn't mastermind how this all came about. It kind of just happened for us through a series of circumstances. To be honest with you, one of the reasons I started niching down was I just couldn't face any more family photography. I'm serious. I just detested it. I thought, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Because back then I was doing a bit of everything. So that's what I want to talk about today. So if you're new to the channel, my name is Richard. I'm a full-time studio owner and photographer here in Australia. I own this studio. Our studio turns over multiple six figures per annum. I own it with my wife. We're on our way towards $1 million per annum, and I make these videos because I enjoy talking about business, and in the interest of transparency, I do have visions of becoming a full-time educator and speaker when I decided to hang the camera up. So without getting into too much, my progression into specialisation, I think happened like a lot of photographers, and that is when I started in weddings, and the reason I started in weddings because I thought that's where the money was. And then from the weddings, I ended up opening a portrait studio, and then at the beginning of the portrait studio, I think I did what a lot of people did, and that is I just started photographing anyone with a pulse. If they had a family or a thing or whatever, then I would say, yeah, whatever, come in, I'll do it. And that was fine, and it worked, kinda. But what happened with me, like I alluded to at the beginning of this, is that I just got to this point where I just couldn't photograph any more kids. You know what I mean? For me, it's just not my cup of tea. And the breaking point for me personally was, I had this young mum and her kids, and the husband didn't come in because he was off doing something, which is pretty normal. And these kids went ballistic, you know what I mean? They were running around the studio, they were hiding behind things. I thought they'd run out of the building, you know what I mean? I was freaking out. And the problem that I had was because I didn't know how to handle it, and the parents wouldn't stop them from running around. And so I didn't know what to do. So in the end I said, fuck it, I've had enough. I'm getting out of this. And that's when I started looking to specialising. I tried a few different things. I tried pets. I tried couples. I tried to break just purely into commercial work, and all these things worked. I believe that you get back what you put into it. So if you put your efforts into getting into a genre, that you'll get that work. But in the end, we landed at boudoir, and I've talked about that in other videos, and I won't harp on it here. But what I've found is now that I've been doing this boudoir thing now for coming up more than 3 years now, is that you just get better at it. If you just allow yourself to do the same thing over and over and over again, it's just inevitable. You just get better at it. And if you're watching this and you're a seasoned wedding photographer, like I know some of the people on this channel are, you'll know what I mean. You sort of, because I did quite a few weddings, not like a lot of people did, but what starts as a really stressful thing, you just get better and better and better at it, and you get to predict what's going to happen, and you get to predict the problems that you'll encounter, and sort of actually and even nip those in the bud before they even become a problem. I think the big thing is I found through the repetition, I've developed sort of a playbook, so to speak. What I mean by that is, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, is that, when you're having a bad day, say you're a bit sick, or you just haven't slept well, or you're just not feeling it, or you're not vibing with the people, or whatever the case may be, there's a million reasons. But what you find is because you've done it over and over again, you can just dig into your pit of experience and just start pulling results out. And this happened to me just really recently. I just wasn't feeling very well. The lady who came in, who was really lovely, don't get me wrong, but there wasn't that, we didn't have that immediate connection, and it just took some work. And so because I've done so many now, I could just simply go back and do it. And I think that's where the power of doing the same thing over and over again. And here's a thing that no one really, I've never heard anyone talk about anyway. I'm sure people have. I know I'm not original. What happens is also just marketing becomes really easy. Because what happens is your social channels especially just become the same thing over and over again, okay? And people see them over and over again. And so it just turns, it turns marketing to your avatar way, way, way easier. So you don't become that classic photographer where, and I'm not knocking it. I used to be like this, used to land on my homepage, on my website, and I would have weddings, portraits, couples, engagement shoots, families, dogs, boudoir, just and so you got no real clear or coherent message. But here's another big one also. I hear this mentioned a little bit, but I'll just reiterate it a little bit. Is pricing power. When you become a specialist and when you become an authority in what you do, then you can kind of just price things how you feel like. Okay, it doesn't really matter. I booked I booked 2 yesterday as a result of this. Like I talked to them. One was a doctor and one was an anaesthetist. I can never say that word. Explain that a little bit. These sorts of people, and this is not a criticism at all, I promise you, but these sorts of people are generally, especially doctors and technical medical people, are very technically minded and wants to know lots of details. And they were actually grilling me on the details of the way the days work. Now, they weren't grilling me from the point of view of seeing if I was legit. They were grilling me from the point of view of that they just want to understand it. You know what I mean? And because I could answer all those questions with just sheer authority and even sprinkle in some of my stories, like as you notice I'm very prone to doing, excuse me, they took great confidence from that and just booked on the spot, paid their deposit, and everything's great. And with the pricing, like I quoted them pricing, and they went, "Oh, that's great, no worries at all." And because I could relay that with the same authority from what everything else I'd been speaking about, they went, "Okay, well that's what it is, and that's terrific." I've talked about all the upsides, and you've heard about all the upsides and everything. Like, let me tell you about the downsides. And to be truthful, the downside to this can be, it just gets boring. To be truthful, and even in my genre, it gets boring because it feels like Groundhog Day a lot of the time. And what I mean by Groundhog Day is you're doing the same thing over and over. And the hard bit to come to terms with is, this is always new for our clients, but it's not always new for us. Okay. And I think as creative people, and I also put business people in this category as well, entrepreneurial people, we get our nourishment, I guess, from doing new things. And the new things that reward us as business people and as creative people, meaning we do these new things, people go, "Oh my God," and give you all those compliments about what you've done. That feedback loop that we get by doing those things can creep into this. And so by doing the same thing over and over again, it can be hard, to be truthful. It can be really difficult, but that's where you make the money. Because like I said at the beginning, that's where you get good. If you do the same thing over and over again, you get more efficient, you get better at it. And in my case, I get to know exactly how to handle each body type. I know which photographs sell. I know what works. I know how to start slideshows in the presentations, which photographs to start with, which photographs to finish, what to say, how to say it, all those things. I've made all the mistakes through the repetition of doing it. But the downside is the repetition. And you've just got to get, I think you've got to get past it. There's a couple of ways you can avoid burnout and getting bored and all that type of thing. One is you can have side projects, which I choose not to do. When I put the camera down, I'm not interested in photography anymore. I'd much rather go and watch movies or watch the footy or something like that. I'm not interested in pursuing it. It's not my thing. And this is one of my hobbies. Doing this scratches that creative itch. Learning how to do video. I quite like talking to camera. I like getting better at it. Hopefully, I'm getting better at it. If I am, please tell me. I need the encouragement. I'm like everyone else. I'm a nervous wreck when it comes to doing things like this. So please tell me. But in the case of the photography side of it, I actually just try something new every single shoot, and that can be a real challenge. That really just sparks the old grey matter. And I will actually tell them. I say, look, I just want to let you know that for every single client who comes in, and this is like halfway through the shoot, I like to try something new, and I'd like to try that with you now. Like, it might work, it might be amazing, and it might suck. And I just tell them the truth, and they go, "Oh wow, that's cool." And if it does work, I'll show them. I go, "It's amazing," And the irony is they're completely thrilled that you've taken the time to do something really, to do something really specific. And so the next question is, should you do it? Well, I can't answer that, obviously. But before I elaborate on that a little bit, I think a little bit of common sense has got to come into play. And what I mean by that is if you live in a tiny country town, and let me define country towns, right? Okay, so because that's very different all over the world. I'm talking about like places or little areas or whatever with, 5 to 10,000 or less. Okay, that's the definition of a small town in Australia. I know that's different in America. I sometimes laugh when I hear photographers, especially in America, talk about that they live in a small area, and you go and look up the area, and it turns out there's 500,000 people there. You go, whoa. So that's what I'm referring to, and to give you some clarity on it. So I've got a mate here. He's in a very, very regional area in the country. And he chooses to specialise in families. He's killing it. He does the same sort of numbers that I do here. He's based on more of a volume model. But the area that he's in is a total of about 100,000 people. So bugger all people. To give some clarity, like my area, my immediate area here is about 300,000 people. And because I specialise in women, you can halve that to 150,000 people. You can kind of quarter that to women between the ages of 21 and 50, or probably even less. So I hear a lot of educators advise against it because you're tearing up a lot of your market. And I know what they mean. I know what they mean. So, for example, if you do headshots, you can probably pull them through to become family clients, family photography. Or if you do family photography, you might be able to do pet photography. And if you do family photography, you might be able to photograph their family each year as the kids grow up, depending on what model you're using for your business. I get it, 100% get it. There's more than one way to skin a cat. I'm just talking about what works for us. I think that the more narrow you get, the more powerful it gets. Like, for example, in our case, I've got niches within our niche, which I won't get into here. But I like to have a certain sort of avatar that I aim at, okay? And that works really well for us. There you go. Look, I hope you got something out of this. I enjoyed making the video, something I want to talk about for a little while. If you're niching down, like, what have you niched down to and how have you found it? I'd love to hear that in the comments. If you're thinking about it, what are you thinking about doing? If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. But look, I hope you got something out of this video. I think it's worthwhile, obviously, otherwise I wouldn't have made a video about it. But if you did get something out of it, I'd love you to leave a comment. If you're not subscribed to the channel, I would love you to subscribe. Allegedly, that really helps the algorithm. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. I'm over 250 now. It's a long grind, isn't it? But anyway, that's okay. The fun part is the journey. I do this because I enjoy it. But thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Until next time, keep on smiling, keep on tracking, and take good care.